Enough days have passed so we can really see what the best decks are after the latest nerfs. In this video I will show you what are the best Hearthstone decks right now, their win rates, mulligans, as well as some general tips for them. But I will also go over all of the working archetypes for each individual class, so stick around to the end. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. It's worth noting we should be expecting another batch of nerfs, but not before the Hearthstone Masters Summer Championship finishes, which would be on the 20th of August. So the earliest we should be hearing about some nerfs would be the 22nd of August, so still be careful crafting too much. Before we get into the best decks, let's talk about how you can become the best at complicated subjects like math, data science and computer science with the help of today's video sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant.org makes learning easy with the help of interactive lessons, which is proven to be the best way to learn. Brilliant is great because it makes even the hardest subjects feel like a game, and it's a lot easier to understand difficult concepts like that. Brilliant helps you build a daily learning habit, and you can set your studying to as much or as little for each day depending on what your schedule is. Brilliant is fun and interactive with thousands of different lessons from basic to advanced topics, and new lessons are added each month. And whatever your skill level on a certain topic is, Brilliant can actually customize its content so it can fit your needs. For instance, you can check out the course How Technology Works, and you can explore topics like what actually makes a password good, or how recommendation algorithms work, and know what content you like. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free, visit brilliant.org/Kris05, and the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium plan. So go ahead and check it out. But now, let's get into the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be Nature Shaman, and I gotta say, this is one of the most disgusting decks out there right now, and maybe ever in Hearthstone. The deck is definitely feeling overtuned in skill hands, in particular, and you can literally OTK opponents from full health as soon as turn 6 quite reliably. Turn 7 is where they usually always kill you if you haven't gained extra health or armor, and after turn 8 it's basically over almost every single time if the Shaman knows what it's doing. Right now this is the best performing list, and it differs from the ones we have been used to seeing with the totemic evidence and whatnot. And in this one, we actually have 2 copies of Bioluminance, and that basically lets you build smaller boards, which you can double Bioluminance. You have quite a few small minions, including your totems from the weapon, your schooling, extra dudes from feral spirits and whatnot. And let's not forget you can also discount your nature spells for the next turn with the Flash of Lightning. As soon as you see Flash of Lightning around turn 5 or 6, you gotta be prepared to deny them the next turn, as long as you're passionate about not dying to death. Also, Inza helps them discount their overload cards, as well as the Titan helps them draw a bunch of overload cards. And they can also discover extra damage to the face, including extra Crash of Thunder for 0 mana with the help of Lightning Reflexes. This deck is definitely very hard on the nerf potential list, and it's also very hard to pilot optimally, so definitely be careful crafting this one. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and Hunters do seem to have an edge over it, as well as Rainbow Mages, and from Diamond Legend we can also see Mech Rogue is not his best friend, as well as Plague Death Knight, but it's very close. Mulligan wise, here's what the stats show going first, and here's what it looks like going second. And as you can see, Inza is definitely very important in both situations because it has such a strong effect, but depending on the matchup you might want to be keeping other things like Schooling and Turn the Tides. For other good Shaman decks, we can also see Evolve Shaman doing pretty well with a decently sized sample size, Totem Shaman is also still pretty decent, and there's a whole lot of different variations of Nature Shamans out there as well. On the number 2 spot, we have Hound Hunter, which has been the most popular and consistent deck from Diamond to Legend, but we can also just as easily have gone with Arcane Secret Hunter, which is doing also pretty good, and it's a new archetype. This variant is not running the stupid Yogg location, but instead it goes with a little bit more reliable things like Observer of Myths, and for this card to work we also have Awakening Tremors, with which you can definitely buff your board quite early. We have a single copy of Always Bigger Germonger, which is extremely powerful because if you slap it on a Hollow Hound, this not only heals you with the +2, but also any damage that goes to face also heals you a second time, which is pretty good. You can also slap this into a doubled up Mukla, and suddenly, even if there's a taunt in the way, you can have a 20 damage Mukla +2, slap into a taunt, and the excess damage goes face still. Other than that, the deck is pretty similar to the ones we've been used to. We have a couple of Costume Singers that fish out your secrets, and we still have 1 copy of Zombies, with which you can actually replace for whatever you feel like, and we also have a couple of Hidden Meanings. There's also a Connie in this one for a little bit more disruption, I'm assuming for things like Shaman. And we also have Speaker Stompers, definitely against Shaman. So yeah, like I said, when you see them discount their nature spells for the next turn, it would be a good idea to place this dude. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and only Pure Paladin and Thaddeus Warlock are somewhat problematic, as well as Mech Rogue. Drum Druid might also be too quick for you, but the rest is pretty green. For the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first, and you obviously want your good 1-drops like Costume Singer and also Trinket Tracker. The Titan Forge Trap is pretty nice. If you already have a good curve going, Pozic is also insane, and same can be said for Hope of Kelta Loss, even though you don't really keep this as much nowadays because we also have the Titan, which is basically also a weapon giver. Awakening Tremors is pretty powerful. Selective Breeder, depending on the matchup, might be a good idea. And also Wild Spirits and Spirit Poacher are pretty good. When on the coin, the situation is pretty similar. Depending on the matchup, you might even consider keeping things like Lorphimar if, let's say, you're against a Blood DK or a Control Priest. The Titan is pretty nice, but again, try to be curving into it. Your Wild Spirit cards are pretty good, Costume Singers still, and so on and so forth. Like I said, for other good Hunter decks right now, we also have Secret Arcane Hunter doing quite well with a decent sample size, and it's basically these two variants with quite several iterations. On the number 3 spot, we also have Pure Paladin, which has been doing pretty strong, and it's a lot different than what we have been used to seeing before, and this one is a lot more dude-oriented. We have a couple of Grim Street Outfitters because this one has a lot more minions than its predecessor. Seafloor Savior is also in here so you can buff some things out, and it's also a mech, so you can pull it out from your Purator. Muster for Battle is also in here, and you're gonna notice we're actually not running any other weapons in this one, but you do get quite a few good dudes with this one, so you can actually get some pretty good Warhorse Trainer, which is also a new card in this list, as well as the new Crusader Aura, which is a very powerful spell right now. We also have one copy of Astral Serpent, which helps you with the card draw, and it's also your only dragon in this list, so you get to draw it out reliably with Purator. And we also have the new Titan, which does fit decently well into the deck. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show, and you're gonna notice you don't really have any really bad ones, so climbing should definitely not be an issue. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first, and you basically want your good 1-drops. Muster for Battle is pretty good. Blood Matriarch Liadrin might also be a keep, especially if it's against an opponent that can't really deal with it early, let's say a Druid. Class Action Lawyer might make sense, but try to keep it only if you already have a very good curve, and it makes sense against the particular opponent. Boogie Down is always great, Buff It Biggin as well, and if you already have a good curve going, might even consider keeping Crusader Aura. Like, let's say you already have a 1-drop into Muster for Battle, might be a very powerful turn 4 like that. When on the coin, the situation is similar, you're definitely not keeping Leviathan ever, but you still want your good 1-drops plus Boogie Down. Warhorse Trainer and Muster for Battle were great. Liadrin still makes some sense, and again, if you're curving into the Aura, might be a great idea. You're gonna notice Grim Street Outfitter is actually not considered a great keep in most situations, so keep that in mind and don't overkeep him. For the other good Pally lists out there right now, we also have classical variants of Pure Pally with more spells and whatnot. Mech Pally is also doing quite fine, but those would be the two archetypes for Paladin right now. Next up we have Big Rogue, which did get hit by a nerf, but this variant is actually not running the Lab Constructor anymore. It opts for more reliable things like Krakatoa, and we also have a couple of Scourge Illusionists in here, so you can pull out 4 mana 4/4 Motherships, and that makes for a very sticky board on which you can magnetize your dudes on. The rest of the deck is basically Mech Rogue from the past, and that is still very strong, because you can tempo out quite consistently with your Frequency Oscillator, your Click Clocker, which gives you Divine Shield, as well as extra buffs. The Drone Constructor as well as From the Scrap Heap give you quite the powerful magnetic dudes, and Ventomatic gives you extra buffs when you magnetize. Pit Stop is also pretty strong. The Coppertail Snoop, especially comboed with a Wind Fury, can be extremely powerful in the early turns, and you can drop it out as soon as turn 2. Mimron is also extremely powerful. Spider is pretty good because you can stealth your guys, and also make him pretty healthy. With any Stormcoil you can get some extra gas quite easily. Krakatoa is just a good standalone card in here, but if you don't have it, I guess you could swap it out for something else. And we also have the Titan at the end too. Matchup-wise, you literally don't have any bad ones in Legend, and from Diamond to Legend this is what it looks like again, and only Pure Paladin is not a great matchup for you. As for the Mulligan, here's what the stats show going first, and you basically really want your good early game 1-drops, Mimron, as well as the Coppertail Snoot. From the Scrap Heap is also pretty good, and if you already have that, you might even consider keeping a prep for it. And Ventomatic is also not bad if the hand supports it. And if you feel like your hand's gonna be over, even a Gear Shift might make sense, even though I don't think you really should be keeping this one going first. As for when on the coin, the situation is similar, but here even any Stormcoil is somewhat of a keep, even though it's very rare, and I guess you have to have a pretty perfect hand already. But yeah, you still basically want your good early game, plus Mimron and Coppertail Snoop. For other good rogue decks right now, it's basically nothing but mech rogues and big rogues. There's also Secret Rogue out there, but it's barely 50%, so keep that in mind. And on the last spot we have another deck that got hit by a nerf, which is Rainbow Mage. And a lot of decks are actually dropping Solid Alibi nowadays, even though I do believe that's not a great idea because the card is just way too powerful. Rainbow Sith Mage is still very strong, and in this variant we have a couple of elemental inspirations, with which you can definitely steal games, but you also have the good Sith game plan at the end as well. The Titan is very strong, and you usually want to be dropping him on an empty board, and the first thing you usually want to pick is making your opponent's cards expensive. We have volume up in here, which you usually want to be copying things like either Solid Alibi or just damage to the face like Flame Gazer. With the weapon you can build some pretty big boards. Molten Rune gives you random cards, and with Discovery of Magic you actually get different spell schools, which really helps you get extra gas out of your cards like Creation, the Wisdom, as well as Sif, and the Elemental. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show right now, and things like Blood Death Knight, Relic DH, Trent and Drum Druid, as well as Hunters, are not gonna be too great for you, but you have plenty of greed matchups as well, so climbing should not be an issue. For the Mulligan, here's what the stats show going first, and your weapon is always great, Cold Case is also pretty nice, Prismatic Elemental, depending on the matchup reverberations, like if you're against the Rogue, God knows you're gonna want this. Arcane Artificer is also pretty nice on tempo, same for Arcane Worm, and if you already have a good curve, Volume Up also makes a lot of sense in most situations. As for when on the coin, the situation is similar, but here the Creation also makes a lot of sense so you can get back on the board. The rest looks pretty similar. Discovery of Magic is something you would prefer playing a little bit later, so you can actually get out your Fire, Arcane and Frost spells, so you can reliably find some other things like Shadow, Holy and whatnot. For other good mage decks, we also have Burn Mage is something you might want to consider, Secret Mage is also doing fine, but as you can see, Rainbow is the pro-dominant archetype. For the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, Blood Death Knight is the best performer right now. And we also have Plague Death Knight, barely above 50%, which is definitely not amazing. Frost Death Knight is also scraping the 51%, and same goes for Unholy Death Knight. With Demon Hunter, Relic Demon Hunter is the best performer right now, but in Top Legend, Outcast Demon Hunter is still actually pretty decent. With Druid, your best bet would be Drum Druid right now, but apparently Trent Druid has been picking up, because this thing used to be below 50 last time I checked, but now it's actually at a healthy 56. There's also some Ram Druid going around, but as you can see, it's just at 50, so not amazing. For Priest, Undead Priest almost made it into this top 5, but it's definitely not amazing in Top Legend, I can tell you that much. The only new card in here is the Titan, and everything else is the same. Control Priest is also pretty powerful right now, especially in skilled hands. But that's about it for the working priest archetypes right now. With Warlock, Thaddeus Warlock would be your best bet. Curse Warlock is also acceptable, even though the sample size is not very high for it. And there's also a Control Warlock list out there, which is also doing fine at 55% with a decently sized sample size. And for Warrior, right now Enraged Warrior would be your best bet, and the sample size for that is not very big, but it is what it is. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing before the next nerfs hit. Don't forget to check out brilliant.org for free from my link and see for yourself how fun and interactive it really is. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.